It's time to talk Penn State Nittany Lions football on the Penn State postgame show, and we're live. Just about less than an hour postgame from the end of the game, actually, as Penn State holds off to beat a pesky Bowling Green Falcons bunch from the MAC. I'm your host, Greg DePalma from the Ourlads Football YouTube channel and ourlads.com, the Ourlads Football Network. And joining me this week is Marty Leap from the Happy Valley Insider. How's it going, Marty?
Pretty good. How are you doing? Excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Penn State get into a nice tussle as a heavy favorite. But as we talked about last week with Richie, this was not going to be easy. And I know this coach speak, everybody's a hard game. But, we put it out there. This is not, matter of fact, this was my pick to win the preseason MAC. This is how good I think Bowling Green, and I think you could tell. I mean, and we talked about Fannin is right now our lead scout at our lads. John Cooper calls him the best tight end outside the Power Five, and I think he proved that. And I think Tyler Warren proved he might be the best tight end in the Power Five. So we had a nice little back and forth with the two of the best tight ends in the country.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was an impressive game by both. Tyler Warren, career high in catches, career high in yards, broke a Penn State single game record for receiving yards by tight end today. You mentioned Fannin, heck of a game by him in a lot of ways. Especially early in the game, he was putting Bowling Green on his back. And, a buddy of mine who was watching the game texted me, and he even said about Bowling Green, because they've got some NFL guys on that team. So they do. I'm with you. I wouldn't surprise me at all if they win the MAC this year. I think that's probably a team that wins 8 or 9 games. And, I think one thing that can't be overlooked in this game, too, with Connor Bazelak, he's played at Beaver Stadium before. He's played in the Big Ten. He's played in the SEC.
Yep.
I think that made a big difference, especially early in the game, where he wasn't intimidated by the Beaver Stadium crowd the way a lot of quarterbacks in general, especially a group of 5 quarterbacks, are when they come in there. So, tip of the cap to Bowling Green. I thought they played a tremendous game. I think that's a really good team. I think they're extremely well coached by Scott Loeffler as well. I think that's a team that's going to win a lot of games this year. And like you said, wouldn't be surprising if they win the MAC. And, as a coach, again, some of it is coach speak, but there's also truth to it where you don't hate as a coach to kind of get this scare and survive it, because it gives you something to work on. Your team's a little more battle tested, because last week you went into West Virginia and won 34-12 in a game that honestly wasn't that close. It wasn't the fourth quarter where you had to come up and make the big play. And they had to do that today. And to their credit, they did. The defense did a great job in the second half responding. So, yeah, a lot to work on, obviously, but ultimately you won. You're 2-0. And I think with the 12-team playoff format, too, one thing that changes now, there is definitely some just survive in advance aspects to this week by week now. Because now, with 12 teams making instead of 4, under the 4-team format, a performance like this might be the difference between you being the 4 seed and the 5 seed, but with 12, if you go 10-2 in the Big Ten, you're going to be in. So just survive in advance some weeks, and that's what they did today.
All right. Again, for anybody that is watching live, if you have any questions, comments, we'll definitely share that as we move along here. And anybody that's catching this on demand during the week, on Sunday, Saturday night, don't forget, we're here after every game within 1 hour. Sometimes it'll be 20 minutes, half hour, 45. It all just depends on what's going on, especially with the game, how close it is. This was a close game, so it took us a little bit longer. But you get the drill. And bottom line is we welcome everybody to check us out live so we can interact with you live. It's your show. You're the Penn State fans. And so let us know what's on your mind. Okay, so let's take a look at how this game transpired. And it was a long time for Penn State to take the lead because Bowling Green just marched down the field on their first possession, and they had that behind the shoulder pass, that back shoulder pass to Malcolm Johnson for 30 yards. It beat Cam Miller, but Cam Miller, you're not going to be able to do anything on a play like that. Next play, Fannin really gets his day off, and he scores that touchdown. I believe it was DeLuca was on coverage there. That was the one that was a little bit of a crossing pattern, a little bit of a pick. But bottom line is, Bowling Green went up 7-0, and they just said, "Hey, we're here to stay. This is not going to be as easy as you think."
Yeah, and I thought that was a great opening drive by Bowling Green. They were aggressive. I thought Scott Loeffler called a really strong opening drive. And I thought that pick play for the touchdown was a great call down there because it was perfectly executed, and that can be tough. It's very tough to execute that and not get yourself called for offensive pass interference. And they did it, and it worked. That pass down the sideline, like you said, with Cam Miller, he was there. maybe he could have turned around and played the ball a little bit, but ultimately the throw was where it needed to be.
Yeah.
The receiver made a good play. And, I think that was part of it too with Penn State early in this game was their defense. And this is something I wrote about in my takeaways article over at Happy Valley Insider. A lot of times the defense was in position and either they didn't make the play or Bowling Green made a really good play. And that's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
It's sports. Sometimes you can do everything right and get beaten. I felt like that was happening some early in the game for Penn State. But, yeah, like you said, that opening drive I thought was a statement drive by Bowling Green of, hey, we're not going to come in here and just lay down and die. We're going to fight. And, they fought to the very end.
And by the way, we're not going to say this week regarding 2 weeks from now when they take on Kent State. All right. So we're not telling you that that's going to be a tough game. We're not going to blow smoke up your butt. Fact is, that's the game where Penn State should cruise early, rest everybody. It's coming off a bye. That's the only thing. And maybe they get off to a sluggish early start. They know they're going to win the game, that kind of thing. But they'll blow out Kent State. That's not going to be an issue. Okay, so Penn State then gets the ball. And on their first play, Tyler Warren for 13. Next, Katron Allen goes and runs for 30. Next after that, you get a Nick Singleton up to gut for 17. Another Warren pass for 15. And that was the one where Aller was a little bit behind Warren. If he would have just hit him in stride, it would have been probably a cakewalk touchdown. Didn't matter because one play later, Aller kept it for the 5-yard touchdown run, and it was a quick answer, 7-7.
Yeah, I really liked the play you mentioned to Warren up the sideline where he kind of tiptoed and couldn't stay and went out to 3 or whatever it was. I thought that was just a brilliant call in that situation by Andy Kotelnicki because the way they swung Nick Singleton out of the backfield, you put that linebacker where it was either he had to come up and commit to covering Singleton, and that left Warren wide open to what happened, or if he goes with Warren, you get the ball to Singleton in space, and as a defense, you never want Nicholas Singleton with the ball in space. So I thought that was a brilliant call there by Andy Kotelnicki. Through 2 weeks, the early returns on Kotelnicki, the offense coordinator, obviously have been tremendous for Penn State. But yeah, like you said, I thought that was big on Penn State's end too, where you come out and got punched in the mouth, which doesn't happen to them very often at Beaver Stadium, period, let alone against the Group of 5 team or even non-conference in general. James Franklin still has never lost a non-conference game at home against Beaver Stadium.
Crazy,
so,
yeah.
That includes West Virginia, that includes Pitt, that includes Auburn. This isn't just
MAC teams. Yeah.
They're hard to beat at Beaver Stadium. Beaver Stadium is one of the best home field advantages in the country for a reason. So, I thought it was important that the rare time they got punched in the mouth at home, they came out and responded the way they did. And, it just kind of set the tone for the day for Penn State's offense because really, I think Bowling Green probably had, 1 or 2 legitimate stops on the day. Most of the day, if Penn State's drives weren't finishing in points, it was self-inflicted issues, penalties, turnovers. So they kind of came out and set the tone of like, hey, you know what? Our defense is struggling, but we're gonna be here to pick them up, which was something we didn't see at all last year. It was always the other way around with Penn State, where the offense was struggling, the defense had to pick them up time and time again. So it was nice to see, I think, too, from that perspective for Penn State, of like, hey, you know what, this year, if the defense is having a game where it's taking them a little time to get their footing, unlike past years, the offense is there to pick up the load and carry it, which is what they did in the first half today, starting with that first drive.
Yeah, this is clearly a different Drew Aller, no question about it. Matter of fact, I said on my show I do with Mark Lawrence from Playbook Experts YouTube channel, I told him that because each week I'll update the futures, the championship futures and Heisman futures, and say, okay, these are some bargain picks that I would advise you to go ahead and wager if you'd like. And Aller was, I think he was the only one I picked this week. There might have been another one, but I think he's still 28-1 entering this week to win the Heisman, and I think he was definitely worth consideration. You saw that again today. Next drive, by the way, for Bowling Green, they get a field goal drive, and by the way, on this drive, they did attack Miller again. I don't know if this must have been game planned, that because they back-shouldered Miller again. This was a different receiver. This was the Delaware State transfer, Rakeem Smith. And so interesting that on their first couple of scoring drives, they both back-shouldered against Cam Miller. They had to settle for a field goal. So, matter of fact, it was 4th and 1, and they went for the field goal. You could say, well, shouldn't they be going for it? Because it was third and 6. Then it was Beeman was offsides on to make it a 4th and 1, and I get what they might be thinking, but the fact is that because they went for it later on in the game, and I think he should have stuck with the idea of not going for it because I like the idea they didn't go for it the first time if I'm a Bowling Green fan, because once you get into the dirty trenches of short yardage situations, that's when it's about, are they physically bigger and better than you? Yeah. So I think, elements of surprise and all that get taken out. So I agreed with the first call that set up the field goal for Bowling Green to go up 10-7.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching that live, I was thinking if I'm Scott Leffler, it's just you're the 30-point underdog. You're 2 drives in. You have the defense on their toes. I would have gone for it there. But in the end, would it have mattered? Who knows? But, I mean, like you said, I think that's a valid point, though, where, yes, Bowling Green was having offensive success to that point. But ultimately, and this is no slight at all against Bowling Green's offensive lines. I thought they played well. But you're talking about Bowling Green's offensive line against probably, at worst, the 3rd best defensive line in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan. It's, like you said, come to shove in that situation, it's beef on beef, and the bigger beef's probably going to win there. So
most of the time, but
yeah. But I could also understand that. Hey, let's take the points. Let's keep the momentum. And with Cam Miller, I think that was it was either that drive or the next drive where he also got called for the defensive pass interference. And I agree with you. It did seem early on they were targeting him. And I will say that to Cam's credit, I thought in the second half that he played much better, which, kind of the defense as a whole. But
yes,
it definitely seemed that was part of their plan early on, was to go at Cam Miller, which I think maybe you're going to see that moving forward is maybe a bit of a trend for opposing teams, because on the other side, you have A.J. Harris, who was by some services a 5-star recruit in high school, who transferred in from Georgia. And it's not that he wasn't good at Georgia, it's just that it's Georgia. It's hard to get on the field, right? So, and A.J. Harris has been tremendous through 2 weeks. And I think that it's more of going to be team strong at Cam, and not as because, we think we can pick on Cam Miller, but hey, the guy on the other side might be a 1st-round pick in 2 years. Let's not throw at that guy. But, to Cam's credit, I thought he really had a very strong second half after really struggling early in this game.
Penn State gets the ball back, and they're unable to move the ball because of the penalty, the holding penalty from Drew Shelton. So instead of, I believe, which would have been that first down to Wallace, who was quiet today, instead Shelton gets called for the holding, and then you had the Amari Evans drop. So now he ended up having a good game, but that was the bad one, that right there in his breadbasket. And who knows, maybe he took his eye off the ball, because it's possible he could have made a bigger play than just picking up the first down. But that was a bad drop, and then Penn State ended up punting and giving the ball back to Bowling Green, who picked up a couple of first downs. And on 2nd and 10 from the Penn State 43, Fannin beats one of the best safeties in football, Kevin Winston Jr., picks him up for 33 at a Penn State 10. Then on 3rd and 14 from the 16, Basilic with a really good pass, corner of the end zone, to Malcolm Johnson Jr., who had a big game. They go up 17-7. That was against Wheatley, who did not, sort of like Miller, did not have a good first half.
Yeah, it was, again, I think those first couple of drives were really in a lot of ways kind of indications of what was going to come, right? Miller and Wheatley starting to struggle, and then both turn around the second half. And you mentioned Penn State's offense there. Drew Shelton getting called for the holding that negates a 3rd down, and then on 3rd and even longer, he still convert, but Amari Evans drops it. Like you said, Amari bounced back, had a big touchdown catch, had another touchdown catch to come off the board because of an offensive pass interference that he definitely did not need to commit. He had separation on the guy already, but I think, it was at that point, if you're Penn State, you're kind of clenching a little bit, because it's like, all right, we're down by 10 now. And just, I think in general, a lot of credit to them, to the coaching staff, to just keep their cool, realize, hey, we got a lot of game left. We're still the more talented team. We just got to clean up the mental errors more than anything else, which, the defense definitely went on to do, and they wound up being okay then. But again, I think it was continue to give credit to Bowling Green, to Scott Leffler, because they just continued to be aggressive. Like you said, going at KJ Winston. A lot of coaches in that situation, 3rd and 14 from the 16-yard line, you're probably seeing them run the ball or something super conservative and be fine settling for 3. And Leffler wasn't. He was aggressive, went to the end zone, and it paid off. So again, I think Scott Leffler had a tremendous game. I thought Bowling Green played their tails off, and that drive was a big example of it, because the way they just remained aggressive when they had to lead.
And then speaking of Evans, Penn State answer really quickly. 3 plays. Allard to Warren for 23. Singleton breaking tackles and dragging defenders for 25. And an Allard to a wide-open Evans for a 29-yard touchdown pass. And just like that, it's 17-14 Bowling Green. And, that was a nice answer.
Yeah, it was a big answer, I thought. going into that drive, you're Penn State, you needed points. Even if it was just 3 to cut it back to 1 score, you needed points to settle things down, start to reestablish some momentum, and they didn't. One thing, again, to circle back Andy Kotelnicki here through 2 games, that's been a very pleasant change to see, and especially today when they needed it. Last year, Penn State's offense averaged 35 points a game or whatever it was, but it was kind of hollow because the chunk plays, the explosive plays weren't there. When they scored, it was 10, 11 play drives, run the ball, drain the clock. And I don't even think that's necessarily what James Franklin wanted to do as much as it was what he had to do. He didn't have a choice because of the kind of makeup they had on offense. And this year they've been much more explosive, and that drive was it personified. Like you said, 3 plays, each from 20 plus, boom, 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 you're in the end zone. Through 2 games, Nicholas Singleton already has more rushes of 40 plus yards than he had all of last season. I think they have more passes of
it's crazy
25 or 30 yards than they had all of last season, which is wild.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the explosiveness, and that's where it's big in a situation like that where, hey, we know we really need points here. We got to go get it, and we can do it, and they did.
And by the way, I think that some people around the country might take this close game as, Penn State, we told you they were overrated. Once again, think that, but Bowling Green is a much better team than a lot of people think, and I think they're going to realize that as the season wears on. Well, Bowling Green gets the ball back. They get another first down from Fannin, but then this is when they went for it on 4th and 1 at their own 45, and Abdul Carter, who was pretty quiet, had his big play of the game with the big swat right back into the face of Basilic, and Penn State was able to take control of the ball. And then after a first down, they get stopped on a 3rd and 3 run blitz, and then have to settle for a field goal. But anyway, it wasn't any everyday field goal because it was very important, especially what happened last year, especially what happened last week, to see Sayedek get that field goal because it was 43 yards and it was right down the middle.
Yeah, I thought that was big for Sanders Sayedek to get that because he was, for those who don't know, he started last season as the team starting kicker, missed 2 field goals in the first half against West Virginia, got benched at halftime, and other than mop-up duty, you didn't see him again the rest of the year. Alex Falcons, who took over, has since moved on. Sayedek comes in, like you said, missed that kick last week against West Virginia. I think that was big for him, for the team, for a lot of different areas where that was a kick he needed. He got it to his credit, and then he was good the rest of the game, right? Went on to hit another one. PATs all look solid. So I wouldn't be surprised if, month and a half from now, you can circle back and be like, yeah, that was kind of the kick that sprungboard his season. So, that was definitely a huge kick by Sayedek, not just in the game situation, but for his own confidence in the trajectory of his own season to get that one through.
Bowling Green not going away. Because they wound up getting, after a first down, Fannin beats Wheatley and bullies his way down for 18 yards to the Penn State 44. One play later, they get the 41-yard touchdown run by Jamal Johnson. And, boy, that offensive line, like you said, they played pretty well considering they're a MAC offensive line. They just seemed to push that Penn State defensive line around on that play. Kobe King might have been out of place. Because, again, right up the middle, that's where the opening was, and that's where the running back was, and he was able to take it to the house.
Yeah, I thought early on, again, those are some of those mental mistakes I talked about. Like you said, Kobe King getting kind of flushed out of where he was supposed to be there. There were some times in the first half and where you saw the defensive line over pursue and kind of run themselves out of plays. But, again, tip of the cap to Bowling Green's offensive line. I thought they played extremely well, and people are going to listen to this and think you and I are like the world's biggest Bowling Green apologists, I feel. But it's true. They're a good team. They play Texas A&M in 2 weeks, and I guarantee you they're going to give Texas A&M all they can handle. I'm looking at their schedule now, and outside of that Texas A&M game, they might be favored in every other game they have left this year. So it's to their credit, they came out, they were aggressive, and part of that aggressiveness was them exploiting Penn State being out of position, Penn State being over-aggressive, Penn State's making those mental errors. Bowling Green was able to exploit those and take advantage of them, which credit to them for that, because not every football team in the world is going to do that, to get opportunities to take advantage of it and don't always do it, and I thought they did. And, I feel like that was the drive, though, where after that one, Penn State's defense finally started to really kind of put a foot down and rally and start playing better. But yeah, that drive was once again just mental mistakes, guys running themselves out of plays, and Bowling Green took advantage of it.
And look, we talked about this, Richie and I, last week, the fact that another reason to keep an eye on Bowling Green, they had upset Georgia Tech last year as a 21-point road dog. They had upset Marshall and Toledo in 2022. as a 17 and 15-point dog, one on the road, one at home. And then in 2021, they went to Big Ten Minnesota as a 31-point dog and beat Minnesota. They also beat Buffalo on the road as a 13-point dog. So they were proving under Loeffler that they could come to your house, surprise you if you're taking them lightly. And this year's version is even better than the ones we saw over the previous few seasons. Now, Bowling Green takes the 24-17 lead with 3/3 down, but they are able to get into field goal range. I mean, he had another Warren pass, slipping a tackle for 30 yards, Singleton the next play for 15. You had Aller for 15 on his own. And then you had the sack on 3rd and 7 at the Bowling Green 9. And that took Penn State out of an opportunity for a touchdown. They get another field goal. Goes into halftime, 24-20, Bowling Green.
Yeah, I thought them getting points there was big too, because you're getting the ball to come out of the start second half, where if you could get points, you could take the momentum in the locker room for as poorly as you'd played defensively in that first half. You were thinking, hey, even if we get 3, which is what they did, you go and you're only down 4, you have the momentum. And I thought one thing that was important that Penn State did a great job of today is every time Bowling Green punched, they immediately punched back. And I think that was a big part of why, until they kind of got things going defensively, they were able to just hang around, not let Bowling Green get to this, was a 3-score lead or something like that, where they really had to start to rush around and panic. Was that whenever Bowling Green, like I said, Bowling Green would punch, Penn State would punch back, which was important until they were able to right the ship defensively. And I thought going into the half, that was an example of that, where, what they just scored, we're going to go down, we're going to take points, take the lead in the locker room, we get the ball to start the second half, and that's exactly what they did.
And we saw that the both teams actually defenses seemed to catch up a little with the offenses. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was close early on that first drive for Penn State because Allen had that catch at the Bowling Green 35 overturned. So whether you thought that was a catch or not, the fact is over the first 2 weeks, Penn State has had replay just really work against them. So It hasn't cost them. But,
no, it hasn't, but it's been something else. That one I could see, because it did look like the ball moved a little bit and the tip hit the ground. I still am waiting for C.J. Donaldson to score on that one from last week. But,
that was awful. Yeah,
that was terrible.
Yeah,
but I'm sure James Franklin will. He's not going to have too many kind things to say about the Big Ten replay officials if you asked him, especially if you hit him with the truth serum first. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks on the reviews for Penn State.
And then Bowling Green gets the ball, but just like we said, Wheatley turned the corner in the second half. He had a nice PD against Rakeem Smith on a 3rd down pass. So Bowling Green, quick out. Penn State gets the ball back, and this is when they take their first lead of the day. You had a Tyler Warren pitch and catch for 10. Warren, he had a wide open down the sidelines for 30 catch from Aller. Then on 2nd down, Warren for 23. 4 plays later, 2nd and 7, Bowling Green 14. Aller to Nick Singleton down the middle, 27-24 Penn State. And that's really impressive for a running back to make a catch like that down the seam. That's just going to make him an even more impressive pro.
Yeah, I thought it was a great route. Once he got past the linebacker, you knew it was going to be there. And he did a great job the way he ran his route and angled it, that he didn't give the linebacker an opportunity to get hands on him or slow him down or anything. And then Drew Aller followed it up with a tremendous throw as well. But, like you said, for a running back to get down the seams like that, impressive. One thing that we heard all offseason, we were going to see more of this year, was the running backs, especially Singleton, in the passing game. And through 2 games we have, and it's been a lot of fun to watch Andy Kotelnicki get creative with these backs. And he's only going to get more and more creative as the year goes on. You get into conference play and you got to start dipping into the bag a little bit more. But Singleton is absolutely thriving in this offense right now.
All right. And then we go to the fourth quarter, because that was the only score of the third quarter. So in the fourth quarter, because actually what happened, Bowling Green had a 3 and out. And Penn State had picked up a 1st down. And then, again, we talked about this in the open, Aller to Amari Evans for what appeared to be a 45-yard touchdown. But he got called for offensive pass interference. And really, he wouldn't have gotten called because initially he had slapped him, but it was in the right area. The second time he slapped him in the helmet. And you're just not going to get away with that too often. And by the way, Lorfils, the guy that he went up against, the DB, is really considered one of the better defensive backs in the MAC. So, but anyway, that was the deal. And then on 4th and 5 at the 43, Aller to Evans for 5. So the drive still stays alive. That was a little crossing pattern. Just picked up the 1st down. Then you had Allen for 25 to the Bowling Green 12. But then the next play, it's like, well, wait a second. I mean, what happened here? It'd be very nice to find out, and I'm sure we will, what Aller had to say about the interception, which was the last play of the third quarter. And this is really the play that kept this game alive for Bowling Green. It just looked like Penn State was about to start opening things up and taking the 2-score lead. Not at that time. And I guess he underthrew it. Maybe he didn't see the DB. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, from watching it live and then watching the replay, my guess is he thought he had man coverage all the way, and then whenever the DB underneath who picked it off dropped back into the zone, he didn't see him. Now, I'm sure Drew will tell you, regardless, you need to get a little bit more under that ball to get it over the DB's head to try and get it back to Wallace in the back of the end zone. I also wonder, hindsight being 2020, if Franklin kind of wishes, hey, just let the clock run out there, and we'll make this the first play of the fourth quarter instead of the last play of the third. But I guess I'm guessing based off live and watching the replay that Drew thought he had man all the way, and then whenever that other corner dropped back off of Liam Clifford and dropped back in the end zone, he didn't see it. I'm going to assume that's what happened because that's what it looked like to me. But all around, I'm sure it's, like I said, it's a throw. Drew would like that back, and I do think James, if he could do it again, probably lets the clock run out there and saves that snap for the first play of the fourth quarter.
All right, fourth quarter, Bowling Green, 3rd and 5 at their own 8 because for some reason the defensive back decided to take the ball out of the end zone, which was great for Penn State. They're able to get Fannin a quick pass outlet. He gets a good block and picks up 10 yards. But Bowling Green has to punt after a few more plays after that, so they win more series out. Penn State, though, unfortunately, they get the second key holding penalty against them that stops a drive, and that was freshman Luke Reynolds. He gets a holding penalty that negated a first down by Warren, and Penn State has to punt. So Bowling Green gets the ball back with 10 minutes left, and they're still in a position to take the lead. 3rd and 4 at the 25. Basilick to Johnson. Again, he had a really good day for a first down. That was against Kimber. 3rd and 3 from the 40. Fannin picks up a first down. Jalen Reed looked like he was a little slow getting to Fannin from maybe he was lined up a little too deep on 3rd and 3. Next play, though, Tony Rojas, huge interception on Raheem Smith, who was the intended receiver at his own 30 at the Penn State 38 with 6:36 left.
Yeah, tremendous play by Rojas, who, I mean, for those who maybe are unaware of Tony Rojas, this is his first full year as a starter. The true sophomore, former 5-star recruit. The coaching staff is very high on him. They think he's going to be the next great linebacker at Linebacker U. Made a tremendous play on the interception. I would argue that was the biggest play of the game because Bowling Green had picked up a couple first downs. Like you said, for the first time in the entire second half, their offense looked like they were finding a little bit of rhythm. We're still only down a score at the time, and Rojas immediately thwarted it with that pick. So I think that it was a tremendous play by Rojas. Like I said, I think there's an argument to be made that may have been the biggest play of the game also.
I won't argue with you. Penn State gets the ball back, 3rd and 6 at the 42. Aller to Evans, incomplete, and all of a sudden, Penn State's offense just not clicking at the right time, so they got a punt, 3 and out. Bowling Green gets the ball back at their own 15, 3rd and 11, and then this is, again, back-to-back turnover plays. Wheatley gets the big interception, and I had no idea what Basilick was thinking here. I guess he was just throwing the ball away and didn't realize that where he threw it was where Wheatley was, and Wheatley was able to pick off Basilick at the Bowling Green 41, which set up the next play. Nick Singleton, a 41-yard touchdown run, which pretty much ended the game with only about 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I think the Basilick interception, the only thing I'll say on that is that's your lesson to any young quarterbacks out there watching and listening. When you throw the ball away, chuck it out of bounds every time because nothing can go wrong if you just throw it out of bounds. Because I agree with you. I think he was just trying to throw it away because he was under pressure. But, again, that's why you always just throw it out of bounds because nothing's going to go wrong. But the Singleton touchdown run right before the offense came back on the field from the interception, I was talking to my buddy Clay, and Clay said, he goes, hey, Allen's had a great game, but I feel like this needs to be a Singleton drive. I said, yeah, I agree. I said, it'd be a nice time for him to just rip 140 yards here and put the game on ice. And sure enough, so I guess he and I must have spoken into existence. But, yeah, and again, that's where, man, that speed and that burst can kill, with Singleton. And if you're Penn State, you've got to be excited because the Nick Singleton you've seen these first 2 games epitomized by that play is freshman year Nick Singleton. Not the Nick Singleton you saw last year who struggled some, didn't seem to have the same burst and wiggle as he did 2 years ago when he was a freshman All-American. That burst and that wiggle's there. I don't know if maybe there was something going on behind the scenes injury-wise or whatever it may have been last year that they were hush-hush about, or if it's just the difference in the new blocking schemes within this offense, and just Andy Koldenicki being a lot more creative than Mike Yurcich was. Whatever it is, this is the Nick Singleton we saw 2 years ago, who looked like he was on his way to becoming probably a top 5 running back in college football. So I think he's on his way to having a big year, and just that run kind of epitomized what makes Singleton so good, because he's physical to get through that line. Then once he's through, he hits the jets and has a gear that few human beings have, and he turned it on. And at that point, I mean, I know Bowling Green went down and scored again to make it a 1-score game, but you kind of knew at that point, 4 minutes, no timeouts, like 10, that was it. And how often too do you see these games where the upset alert, the threat, the team's hang around, and then boom, in those closing minutes, they finally get down by 2 scores, and at that point it's over.
Yep. And like you said, they get the field goal, can't get the onside kick. Good onside kick, by the way. But
yeah, it definitely got hairy there for a second if you're Penn State, because that was a really well.
That was hanging. That's how you want it.
That extremely well.
Yeah. So Penn State winning 34-27. Aller 13-20, 204, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Singleton and Allen both over 100 to get 234 on the ground for a team, 6.3 average. Bowling Green rushed for 4.7 average, which is not what Penn State wants to see for their defense, even though they didn't have a lot of yardage, only 121. That's because Basilik 2 for 254, but he had 2 interceptions. Those 2 late, of course, were the killers. And then Fannin. Look, Penn State fans are going to realize when the draft comes this year, and because he's going to get picked in the first couple of rounds, you're going to go, absolutely. I know him. I remember that guy. And, he had a huge game. 11, 137 touchdown. But Warren, like you said, breaking records with all those great Penn State tight ends. Wow. When you're breaking records there, that's saying something. 8, 146. 18.3 average for a tight end is pretty awesome. Those are pretty much the big stats out there. Defensively, Jaden Reed led with 10 tackles, even though most of them were pretty quiet. That was the thing on defense. They had a couple of really nice interceptions late. But in general, for the most part, you had Abdul Carter swat late in the first half, but there just weren't a lot of big plays by the defense, difference-making plays until those last 2 interceptions. That's something they're going to have to get a lot better at, because I think, let's compare it to a team like Notre Dame, who also has a very good defense. But Notre Dame's defense, I don't think they're giving up 27 against Bowling Green. So, but then again, I think Penn State's offense is better than Notre Dame's. So, look, second game of the season, a long way to go. And I just think that what we're going to see over the next several weeks with the opponents that you have, Kent State, Illinois is not going to be easy, but it's still Illinois, UCLA back-to-back. They should be in good shape until the matchup against USC, which should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that 3-week stretch there, they go to the Coliseum October 12th. Then they get a bye week, which I think coming home from the West Coast and having a bye week is low-key pretty important, and a really nice touch to have, especially with this being the first year of this cross-country travel. Because you can take your time coming back. And then you go to Madison, which I know Wisconsin's not a great team this year, but you got to go to Madison under the lights. I don't care who you are. Playing at Camp Randall, especially under the lights, is never going to be easy. And then you come home to play Ohio State. So that 3-week stretch is going to determine where the season goes for Penn State. I mean, I think if you go at least 1 and 2 in that stretch, you're probably a playoff team if you're Penn State.
Well, as long as you find your way. But the problem is, if you lose 2 games, you better be in the Big Ten championship game. That's going to be the trick. I don't know. I see what you're saying, but it's going to be tricky if they don't enter the championship game with 2 losses.
Yeah, well, let's just say this way, too. I think it depends on what USC's like. Because I don't see a scenario where the Big Ten doesn't get at least 3 teams in. Now, if Penn State and USC are both sitting there 10-2, let's say, in the Big Ten championship.
That's true.
It's probably the winner of Penn State, Ohio State, or Penn State USC who's in. Yeah. Now, they both can still get in, but we'll see. But like you said, a lot of time to go to them. So if you are Penn State, I think that's the key thing. You go into the bye week, then you play Kent, too. Nothing against Kent State, but that's just – with everything they've gone through in the last 24 months with Sean Lewis, and they're miserable. They're one of the worst teams in the country.
They are.
Well, like you said, Illinois.
I will say something. I watched their game against Pitt. I watched a lot of that game. And I tell you what, they didn't play it that bad. They actually looked better than I thought they were going to look. They're not Bowling Green, okay? I'm not saying that. But they're not as bad as they were last year based on what I saw in week 1.
Yeah, and I had that on a little bit of it last Saturday as well as one of the boxes on the quad screen, and they hung around a little bit. And again, I don't think Pitt's anything special this year either, but it's still power conference school.
Oh,
Against Penn State,
absolutely.
so,
I mean, they lost by 31, and we're
Yeah.
telling you that they actually played better than they did
Play
last
better
year.
than you would think, yeah.
What does that
But I
say?
think it just goes to show how low the bar is for them
Yes,
coming into the year.
yes.
But then even Illinois, I mean, like you said, Illinois is never going to be easy. Brett Bielema is a really good football coach, but I think Illinois is a team Penn State matches up well with.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's Brett Bielema. What's he going to want to do? Run the ball, run the ball, run
That's
the ball.
it.
And we saw that last week with West Virginia, and it didn't end well. So I think that's a big thing there, too. And then you have UCLA, who's in a major rebuild right now.
Yeah.
So you've got plenty of time to get things sorted out. And I think if you're Penn State, where you've got to feel good about it through 2 weeks is, yeah, maybe there's some hiccups on defense you're a little bit worried about right now. But coming into the year, you felt good about the defense. That wasn't your concern. The fact the offense has been humming, I mean, there's still some things to clean up. Like today, the pass interference talked about with Maury Evans. There was a deep ball also in the fourth quarter. There was good coverage by Bowling Green, but Trey Wallace probably should have caught it, which would have been, if not a long touchdown, you're looking at first and goal at like the 1 or 2 yard line. They left some points out there. But you know what you have on this defense. You expect to be able to clean up any potential mistakes you see there. Offensively is where your question marks were. And through 2 games, I think a lot of those question marks, other than maybe left tackle, because Drew Shelton did not play well today. And as the game went on, you saw more and more of Nolan Rucci, the transfer from Wisconsin, getting playing time there. So outside of maybe that, I feel like a lot of your question marks on offense have already been answered. You still want to see a little bit more out of the receivers. But, hey, you know what? If you're going to get 100 yards from Trey Wallace one week and then the next week, Maury Evans popping off a couple long balls, helping move the sticks. Even Julian Fleming today only had 1 catch, but it was a 3rd down and 2. And for people who didn't watch a lot of Penn State last year, this is just, I think, how low the bar was a receiver. Last year on 3rd down and 2, if you threw the ball, you weren't confident you were going to convert it. So it just little out past the Julian Fleming for 5 yards on 3rd down and 2. Those plays go a long way. So, like, if you're going to get that out of the receiver, especially what you have in Tyler Warren and what these backs can do catching the ball, you're going to feel good. So I think ultimately you got to feel good if you're Penn State through 2 weeks because the offense has answered a lot of their questions. And even defensively, I know they had some hiccups at linebacker today, but they don't have a ton of depth at linebacker to begin with. And Tamir Robinson, who's their number 1 reserve at linebacker, didn't dress. He got hurt at the end of the game last week. But with Bowling Green, you would expect him, if someone's not 100%, they're not going to dress. Tyler Elsdon was in and out, banged up a little bit today. Kobe King looked like he was limping around a couple of times. So I think some of it, too, is just, hey, these guys a week off is going to do that room a lot of good.
Marty, it was really great doing this with you. I thought since we've never done anything like this before, I think we had nice chemistry. So,
I agree. So hopefully, I'm sure I'll be on again before the end of the year next time Richie can't make it. So
yeah, well, don't be leaving me out to dry too often. So because you're the reason that the fans are here. You're the Penn State guy. You're the one that covers the team. I'm just setting you up, and and you're hitting the home runs. That's what it's all about. So I look forward to talking to you sometime soon. Hopefully, even after the Kent State game, if that's our next journey. And by the way, anything else that you want to tell the viewers regarding your upcoming content, upcoming videos, anything like that?
Yeah, just check us out, Happy Valley Insider, part of the Rivals Network. We'll have you covered. We already have my takeaways from the game is up and posted already. We've got staff on site, so we'll have recap of what James Franklin and the players had to say after the game. Have some video recap up, and be with us throughout the week. I feel like we kill it in the recruiting coverage. There's I don't want to give too much away, obviously, without being behind the paywall. But there's been some recruiting news in the last few years that we were the site who were on it before anyone else, and things of that nature. And we'll have you covered throughout the season, and we'll have updates on how Penn State commits are performing in their high school games and our weekly coverage of the team. So come check us out.
Excellent, Marty. Appreciate it. Everybody out there, don't forget. Check us out for the live coverage. Interact with us, questions, comments, all that. I know we're new on the channel. Regarding these shows, it's going to take time, but you're going to be watching this on demand. We welcome you to join us live after the games. So check it out again, usually somewhere within the hour after every Penn State game. Marty, appreciate it, like I said, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely, Greg. Look forward to doing it again.
You got it.